Yeah.
Before we start, I have a question.
Yeah, let me just make the starting point. Starting point is the top, in about 8 lines from the top on page Mem. The line begins Masha Ayin Kain. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so one question is from a few days ago. I should have spoken before, but didn't occur. We were talking about property, land that belongs to a human being, and we say that God gave it to him, and it can be taken away. And so then I mentioned, what about war? And your first reaction was, there are halachos for the king. When he conquers land, there are rules that he can take the land. I would like to have your comment on the fact that there has been in wars, or even in times of peace, like it happened to me, a decree from a king of a country to expel people from the country, and de facto they lose their land. So, and it happened to Yidden during the war. So land was actually taken from them by decree.
Yeah, and that is called robbery.
Oh, that's robbery.
Yes, a king's law is valid no matter what it is, provided it is uniformly applied to all the citizens. If he chooses one citizen for no reason at all, then that's robbery.
Okay. So it's generalized collective robbery.
It's not collective robbery, it's specific robbery. If he puts a tax on the entire country, then that's law. And you're not even allowed to evade the tax. All right.
Okay, and the second question is from yesterday. Elida said was not a physical thing, but a spiritual thing. Talking about Elida.
Godly thing.
Well, you said spiritual. I noted it. We were talking about Avram capacity of giving birth. So I object to that, because for him to give birth, he had to make a bris also. So that was physical.
That was physical, that prepared him for a greater spiritual power.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so I said, when the line begins, Masha Ayin Kain. So this is, Rabbi is pointing out, another way of seeing the difference between Hashpah, Ruchnis, Hashpah Seichel, and the Hashpah that comes in Haylod. That the Ashpos has seichel, it takes effect only if the recipient also has seichel of his own, and he makes an attempt to understand. Then he will get enormous illumination from his Rav. But if he does not have that seichel on his own, and as we discussed yesterday, if he does not bring it forth, then it will not have any effect. Now, in contrast to that, Masha'ein Kein Behelodo B'doime, which is not so in the phenomenon of giving birth, Behedoime, of a replication of himself, of a similar entity. Harei Mizhave Mehu Seichel Mamush. There, as a result of the Hiloda, that creates Mehu Seichel Mamush, the actual Mehu, the actual presence of Seichel itself. Eitzel Haben, by the sun. Shaharei, since that in Hiloda, Mizhav V'Lad Sholem, a complete child is built, is created, B'moichin V'kei HaSeichel, B'moichin, with the brain power and Koi HaSeichel, V'chein Sha'arei HaKoiches, and similarly all the other Koiches. Shehakoil Hu Mikei HaHo'av, what all this is from the Koyach of the Father. Sheharei Hu B'doim Eloi, because the principle of the Son is that he is B'doim Eloi, he approximates, he reflects the Father. Harei Mishave Mehuz Dover Mamash. Therefore we see that in Hilodo there's a creation of a Mehuz Dover Mamash, of an actual presence. Not just an oil that can be received, but the actual recipient itself. I'd like to call your attention to an interesting emphasis in these couple of lines. Of course, we see that a new entity is created. Why the emphasis on the moichin and the seichel, the koyach ha-seichel? As I'm thinking of it, perhaps I'll deviate a little bit and elaborate on it a little bit broader. There's a similar phenomenon of replication, of promulgation in the plant life, in the animal life, in the plant life. And in the plant life, we have a very fine dispute as to what happens with what is the process, what is the phenomenon of replication in the plant life.
Like the tree giving fruit, something like that?
No. The reason that in that arena is because this is something which we can easily observe the whole process. So there's a seed. The seed is put into the ground. In the ground, the seed develops. It breaks through its shell. It ferments, however you call it. And it begins to develop a tree similar to the tree from which it came. And the scientific explanation of that, the view of this is that actually there's a minuscule, there's a beginning of a tree in each seed, and then when that seed is put into the ground, it breaks open, and it begins to develop as a tree, and eventually it develops as a tree. The way the Alter Rebbe explains it in Tanya, the seed does arouse, it does represent this tree, but the growth of the tree is, as we said before, this is Chayomim B'min. The growth of the tree is due to the fact that the earth has this element, and the Koyah HaTzimeach Sheba'oretz. The Koyah HaTzimeach Sheba'oretz has the Tzimeach inherently for every variety of plant of growth. Then, so therefore, this seed actually disintegrates into the ground. But as a result of this disintegration, it brings out, it solicits, it arouses from the earth the koyach, it identifies within the koyach HaTzimeach this particular tree, and the koyach HaTzimeach of the earth then brings forth this tree. So the seed arouses it. The seed is definitely instrumental in having this occur, but ultimately it is the koyach HaTzimeach Sheba'oretz that gives power to this tree. So now, where is this dichotomy? Where is the principal difference? Principal difference is again in the similar in that we're learning here right now. The physicality of the tree the seed is a physical tree, is a physical entity. So if the tree consists exclusively of a physicality, then it's right there in the seed. But then, as we've discussed lately about a tree, that a tree does not consist exclusively of a physicality. The tree has a certain chayus, certain mission. The mission is to produce the fruit. It is not just being a tree, they produce the fruit, and that's what we explained, that actually the tree is one with the earth. It is the earth that gives it being and gives it impetus and chayus. Because the earth has this godly command to produce trees. Trees that produce fruit. This inyan that the tree does not merely grow and become a physical tree, but it actually then takes over and becomes an independent entity, producing fruit on its own. This is not contained in the seed. This is a spiritual element. This is a godly element. This total independent reality that the tree represents, this is something which is not brought about by the seed.
Nor the earth.
What?
Nor the earth.
No, the earth, yes. The earth has, as we say, Kayom Mimin. The earth has that infinite quality. And it gives it that infinity.
The tree takes on a godly quality that's getting from the earth.
Right. That's what we said before.
So you say
One second. Let me finish. The similar Indian I've been learning over here. So the human being, in giving birth, produces a whole child. Okay, you see, it's a whole child. Why the emphasis on the seichel, on the moichi?
Not just because we're contrasting it against the koyachas. I mean, in other words, I would thought originally we're contrasting this whole thing against the ziva gruchni, which is seichel, and here we're saying in koyach haylada, you're actually
Ziva
creating
gruchni doesn't
seichel.
produce anything.
What does it?
Doesn't produce anything. Ziva gruchni does not produce a hand either. Or a foot. You understand my question? Anybody understand my question?
Why Dafki he's emphasizing koyach haseichel and
Yeah,
maya?
yeah. That's what he produced. He presented. Beheloda b'deimuhu mizhava mahus hari mizhava mahus seichel mamash. Eitzel haben.
In koyach ruchni we said it doesn't produce the koyach seichel mamash. In other words, it's limited. It only gives a person if he has his own seichel. I'm just saying, I'm just not sure I understand the question because it seems
Yeah, I
that
could see
it
that
just
you don't
seems like
No. Let's continue weiter. What do you say? Mizhava mahus seichel mamash shaharei mizhava v'lat sholem b'mechem shaharei mizhava v'lav sholem. V'lat sholem, that's not enough of a contrast with ziva gruchni. A complete child.
Which line is that? Which line?
That's the next line after Mashenki, where we started.
The highest koyach of a person. So male movement with all the
Ah?
other it's the highest koyach of a person. Automatically, you have seichel, you have all the other koyachs.
Fine, but why the emphasis? Haba v'lat sholem. B'meichem mekeh haseichel, the whole repeating again.
okay.
Why? What's the emphasis on making mekeh haseichel? He creates a whole entity, a whole human being. So, okay, now we understand the question. Okay. In similar vein as we explained by the tree, the tipo is a physical tipo. It's a piece from the Father. But that can explain how he's mehaber mulat sholem, the hands and the feet, and everything else. But moichin and seichel, that creates a totally new entity. Because this is the inyan from moichin, this is the inyan ha-seichel. That a human being is independent of his surrounding. He is an entity, he's bli gvul, which is not contained in the tip, per se. Which is not a physical thing. The spirit that is manifest in seichel, and being a bar seichel, is a completely different thing. It's not contained in the tip. This is where, through the tipa, he's giving him the part of his spirit, of the essence of his spirit. That's why it's bedoima.
Is this in contrast to the tree, meaning
by the tree, the infinity of
No,
the
I'm not
thing.
contrasting the tree. I use the tree on the contrary as a means for us to rise up and to understand how it is with the human being. By the tree, it's not like with the human being at all, because the human being himself has a koyach, helod.
So
The
here,
tree does not. The tree draws it from the earth.
So this is the
But
this is
there
the
too
contrast.
we have two things. We have the physicality of the tree, and then we
Plus.
have the koyach hatzimeh that gives it its richness
And here we're saying that infinity is contained in the tipa,
in the seichel.
in the seichel, which is transmitted by the tipa. This is
Right, the tipa carries it, but what does it carry? It carries a koyach eliki. This is where there is the infinity in the human being. That's what the human being says is different than all other creatures. The human being, there's the seichel. The seichel. Seichel is something which puts him completely aside in a different category.
Why wouldn't we say that the tipa carries the physicality and Hashem is a third partner and he puts the infinity, he puts the nefesh into the light, right?
It's true. Hashem gives him the nefesh, no question about it. And this nefesh comes to him through this tipa, because the horaya that it is b'doimalei. The koiches nefesh, and the nefesh itself is whatever Hashem gives him. But the way the koiches function, the nefesh functions by being mislabish in the guf, mislabish in the moyach. Okay? The moyach is the keli for it. This is provided by the father.
The keli is provided by the father.
But this is a keli for seichel. And a keli for seichel is a completely different thing. Is reflected not of the koyach, of the physical koyach of the father, but of the spiritual koyach of the father.
He provides a keli that resembles the physical koyachos of the father.
And the spiritual koyach of
The spiritual koyachos of the father. And this is the place where this is the keli for what Hashem makes.
Right.
So, and the doime is, this keli is like similar to his own.
I'm sorry?
Doime lo. It resembles him.
That's the seichel, the seichel.
The keli is similar to.
But the biggest miracle of it is in the seichel element. Because in the seichel it becomes a totally separate and independent entity.
This resemblance you're referring to is the physical resemblance, or the spiritual resemblance, or both?
Spiritualism.
The spiritual. So each child, both a male, both a daughter and a son, have a resemblance to the father, or just the son has a resemblance to the father? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't, in a certain sense, the daughter also carries it.
Is that a resemblance in personality, or midos, or in level of intelligence? What exactly are we talking about there?
In having seichel.
Having seichel.
That is the biggest miracle of it all.
What does it receive from the mother?
The mother develops it. Harei mizhava mehuz dober mamash. Thus we see that in the case of birth, mizhava mehuz dober mamash is created a mehuz dober. A mehuz means an actual entity independent of anything. A standalone entity. Manifest in the fact that he has all the koyches and primarily the koyach haseh. as we have discussed in the recent shiurim in the last couple of weeks, because the seyach, ha-seichel, has a bli gvul es element. Seichel has an independence element, where he perceives a truth on the basis of his own seichel, not on the basis of any experience, of any external analysis. Ayin hu. However, the principle in this to understand the difference between hashpor ruchnis and hashpor gufnis. The yiker ha'hefresh beineihem, where that the principal difference between them, the hashpor ruchni, hashpor gufni. The hashpor haseichel, it is that the hashpor haseichel hu hashpor chitzenis. It is an external hashpor. B'hainu, which means to say, she'ein anim shel bozeh atzmos umhus hakoyach. That in this hashpor of seichel does not come through. He does not actually give to the Talmid atzmos umhus hakoyach, the essence of that koyach, the power of the koyach. Ki im ha'arosei lavad, only its reflection. What does this mean? It doesn't give him atzmus umhus hakoyach ki im ha'arosei. It means like this. The Rav has this koyach haseichel, and he is able, with this koyach haseichel, to delve in and to bring out all kinds of sichli. What does he give to the Talmud? To the Talmud he gives the sichlim that he already drew from his initial koyach haseichel. He does not give him the ability to draw seichel. Which is the atzmos umhus hakoyach.
So he doesn't give him the ability to draw seichel, he gives him what?
They give him the seichel that he already drew. This is called the ha'ora. That's called hashpor chitzonis. And we will come back to elaborate on this more as we go through this. He only gives him ha'arosei, the ha'ora of the koyach, not atzmos umhus hakoyach, which means he does not give him the koyach that enabled the Rav to get to the seich. One more minute we have, that's it. V'lochein, and for this reason, kol yikir. I think that instead of the dal should be a over here. Kol yikir v'sheiresh hashpor hazois. The principle of this hashpor is hu mikoyach hamaskil shebenefesh. The principle of the hashpor is from the koyach hamaskil in the nefesh. What's the koyach hamaskil? Hamaskil, we explain me, the koyach that makes one understand. Maskil, he makes him understand. Which means he already is shezeho b'chinas ha'amshocha v'yav. Shezeh bechinas hamshocha mehan nefesh, the koyach hamaskil, is the that hamshocha from the nefesh liyismoki l'seichel canal. That which should be a moki for seichel. So the koyach hamaskil, this is the koyach hanefesh, and from this koyach hanefesh liyismoki l'seichel comes seichel. The Rav is mashpia the seichel that is nimshach from the koyach hamaskil, not that which is nimshach from his nefesh. V'chol hamshocha v'his pashtus, and we have this principle that if you're talking about the hamshocha v'his pashtus, something that is drawn not in its essential place, but it draws further out, is mispashit, it has further influence. Harei hi bechinas ha'ora levad, that is merely a ha'ora. The whole etzem ein nimshach, because an etzem does not extend itself. All right, so we need more time to elaborate on this. But what the Rebbe is saying in principle is that Hashpos HaSeichel is called Hashpos Chitzenis because this is what's called that which is Nizgale from the Seichel Harav, not the essential Seichel Harav, how he got to understand it. Therefore, he is not giving him the essential koyach. And now we have to interrupt Mitzvah till tomorrow morning. Have a good day. Okay.